Once upon a time, in a small village by the edge of a deep, dark forest, lived a poor woodcutter with his 2 children, Hansel and Gretel. Their mother had passed away, and their father had remarried, but their stepmother was cruel and cared only for herself. Times were hard, and food was scarce. One night, as the children lay in bed, they overheard a terrible conversation between their father and stepmother. "We have too many mouths to feed," the stepmother whispered harshly. "If we leave Hansel and Gretel in the forest, we will have enough food for ourselves." "No, I could never do that to my children," the father protested, but the stepmother insisted, and in the end, he sadly agreed. Hansel and Gretel held each other tightly, frightened by what they had heard. "Don't worry, Gretel," Hansel whispered. "I have a plan." That night, while everyone was asleep, Hansel crept outside and filled his pockets with small white pebbles from the garden evergreen tree lost in the forest. The next morning, their stepmother woke them early. "Come, children, we are going for a walk in the forest to gather wood," she said sweetly. But Hansel and Gretel knew the truth. As they walked deeper into the woods, Hansel dropped small pebbles behind him, creating a secret path back home. By midday, their father and stepmother left them alone, saying they would return soon. But they never came back. As the sun set and darkness fell, Gretel began to cry. "Hansel, what will we do?" she sobbed. Hansel smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, I left a trail of pebbles. We can follow them home." Quote, sure enough, the moonlight shimmered over the white pebbles, leading them back to their house. When they arrived, their father hugged them tightly, but their stepmother was furious. A few days later, she tried again. This time, she locked the door so Hansel couldn't collect pebbles. Instead, he dropped breadcrumbs along the path as they walked into the forest. Once again, they were left alone. But when they tried to follow the trail, the breadcrumbs were gone. The birds had eaten them. Now, Hansel and Gretel were truly lost. Home the candy house. For 2 days, they wandered through the forest, tired and hungry. "Hansel, I'm so hungry I could eat a whole cake," Gretel sighed. "Me too," Hansel groaned. Just then, a delicious smell filled the air. They followed the scent and gasped. In a small clearing stood a magical house made entirely of candy. The walls were gingerbread, the roof was chocolate, and the windows were made of sugar glass. Lollipops and gumdrops decorated the fence, and the chimney smelled of warm, sweet cinnamon. Hansel and Gretel couldn't believe their eyes. "Is this real?" Gretel whispered. Hansel broke off a piece of the wall and tasted it. "It's real. And it's delicious," he cheered. The children ate happily, breaking off chunks of candy, licking the frosting, and crunching on cookies. But then, the door creaked open. An old woman with a twisted smile and piercing eyes stepped outside. Well, what do we have here?" she cackled. Hansel and Gretel froze. "Oh, my dear children," the woman said sweetly. "You must be hungry. Come inside, and I'll give you a warm meal and a cozy bed." Hansel and Gretel hesitated, but their empty stomachs convinced them. As they stepped inside, they did not see the glint of hunger in the woman's eyes. Woman made the wicked witch's plan. Inside, the house was warm and cozy, filled with delicious smells. The old woman set down plates of pancakes, pies, and fresh fruit. "Eat up, my sweet children," she cooed. Hansel and Gretel ate until they were full and fell asleep on soft, fluffy beds. But when Hansel woke up, something was wrong. He was inside a cage. The old woman was standing outside, her face now twisted and wicked. "Foolish children," she cackled. "I am a witch, and I built this house to trap greedy little ones like you. Now, I shall fatten you up and eat you." Quote, Hansel gasped in horror. Gretel, meanwhile, was forced to do all the housework while the witch fed Hansel every day, trying to make him plump and juicy. But Hansel was clever. Instead of showing the witch his real hand when she checked to see if he was getting fatter, he stuck out a small chicken bone. "Why are you still so thin?" the witch growled. Frustrated, she waited for weeks, but Hansel still felt too skinny. Finally, she lost patience. "I don't care if you're fat or thin. I will eat you tomorrow," she shrieked, fire outwitting the witch. The next morning, the witch ordered Gretel, "Heat up the oven. It must be ready to roast your brother." Quote, Gretel's heart pounded with fear. As the oven glowed with red-hot flames, the witch licked her lips. "Check inside, girl, and see if it's hot enough," she commanded. But Gretel had an idea. She pretended to be confused. "I don't know how to check," she said. The witch huffed impatiently and bent over to look inside herself. At that moment, Gretel pushed her inside and slammed the door shut. The witch screamed, but it was too late. Hansel and Gretel hugged each other, tears of relief in their eyes. Money bagged the hidden treasure. As they prepared to leave, they discovered a room filled with gold and jewels. "We'll take some for father," Hansel said. They filled their pockets and ran out of the house. They followed a familiar path, and soon, they saw their home. Their father ran toward them, crying with joy, "My children, you're alive." Quote, they hugged him tightly, and he explained that their stepmother had left. With the gold and jewels they brought back, they were never hungry again. Hansel, Gretel, and their father lived happily ever after.